you can definitely assume that they're going to have tantrums for a while, and it may take a few weeks for them to understand that, yeah, they're going to get chocolate chips now and then with a meal, and they're not going to be able to have as many as they want, but they're going to be able to have a couple.
All right, guys, I just want to jump right into today's episode. This is part 2 with Jennifer Anderson, who's a dietitian that works directly with parents on instilling healthy habits in their kids. So super excited for this, and I know a lot of you guys are as well. She's going to talk more tips, especially one that she calls the 3-chip trick. I had to make sure I said that right. It's kind of hard to say. It's a tongue twister there. She's going to go over that as well. So check it out. This is an awesome episode, you guys.
Making the food more like interesting and exciting to them by being able to dip it into something, and then also not having a completely separate meal for them that you can, eat off the same thing.
Yeah, I'm a huge believer in food for people as opposed to like kid food and adult food and baby food. I just think of it as food. Like we're all humans here. Obviously for babies and toddlers, you prepare it slightly differently, and you may change the texture or the size to make it safe. But really, if kids are eating a meal, I should be able to eat that same meal and feel good about it. My kids aren't going to eat like a whole plate of salad for lunch. And sometimes that may be what's appropriate for me because that's what my body is craving. And so I'll make myself like a salad with maybe the chicken and whatever our leftovers from dinner were on top of my salad. Well, my kids, they're just not going to eat that. And I know that. So maybe I make it slightly different for them. And instead of giving them a plate of salad in their lunchbox, it's a wrap with the dinner leftovers and maybe a couple pieces of salad inside of it. But we should technically all be able to more or less eat the same food because it's all food.
Yeah, absolutely. So when, like, if at all, should a parent start getting concerned that their child's not getting enough fruits or vegetables, or even maybe another part of the, proteins, that at what point should they, go see a dietitian or get some help with that?
So if your pediatrician is like, hey, your child is not gaining enough weight, that is a great time to be like, oh, okay, something is up. That is a good time to go see a dietitian. A dietitian would be able to actually look at your diet, look at your child's diet, and see what might be missing or what might be going on. Because there's a lot of things that can go on that really takes a professional to diagnose. The thing about pediatricians is they're great at assessing the health of your child right now. So they could be like, your child is growing too much. Sometimes you'll hear pediatricians say, wow, so your child has gained like a significant amount of weight. That's interesting to me. I always ask pediatricians not to talk about weight in front of kids because that can be really problematic. But if there is a concern like that, the pediatrician isn't going to be the best source of information on what to go forward if diet needs to change. They're not the specialist in that area. And that's why they might say, oh, you need some Pediasure, or, oh, you'll hear pediatricians who say, put your child on a diet. That is not an evidence-based practice to just put your child on a diet. So if you ever hear that from a pediatrician, definitely go find a dietitian because you can do a lot of damage by putting a child on a diet. But the dietitian is actually going to assess what is going on, analyze whether or not that is what the child needs, and she's going to be able to, or he is going to be able to make recommendations specifically for your child and what needs to change to help them achieve their health goals.
That's great, because I know we have a Facebook group as well with Mommy Knows Best, and a lot of them talk about, concerns about their kids not getting enough of, vegetables, how do I get them to eat it? I think it's good to know too that, there's, they don't have to force their kids to eat it. I think a lot of it will come with time.
Yeah. So there, that here's the thing. Some kids will outgrow it, and some kids will not. So I think we all know adults who are like, I'm a picky eater, and they essentially eat child chicken nuggets every day. I know those people, and we have to be careful just telling people, oh, your kid will grow out of it. It's normal, because it's not always normal. And normal is a weird word because, like, what is normal with children? But it's not always typical for some groups of children to outgrow that. If they have a sensory processing disorder, or if they have genetically picky tendencies, or a lot of these things, they're actually not going to grow out of it. It's
Mhm.
probably going to get worse. It could get a lot worse. And I actually have a program for those families, my Better Bites program. And we actually go through all the techniques that you would get if you worked with a occupational therapist or a speech language pathologist or a dietitian, to go over the techniques, because some kids, they just can't get over the sensory qualities of food. They
Mhm.
can't do it. It is too overwhelming. It's too scary. It's they can't handle it. And so we have to use specialized techniques to help them be able to hold broccoli in their hand, to be able to smell it, to be able to taste it, to be able to eat it.
Mhm.
And a lot of moms, I find, feel like if their kid isn't eating vegetables or fruits, that somehow they're like a bad mom, or they failed their child, or whatever. A lot of times there is this genetic component, or there's this sensory component. It's out of their control, really. And they can learn some techniques to help their child through that, but it's going to be a process and it's going to take a while, but it's okay.
Scrolling through your Instagram as well, I came across this awesome post about the 3-chip trick. It's like a
Right.
tongue twister.
Yeah.
So can you explain what that is?
Sure. So a lot of kids, mine included, go through phases where they're so obsessed with candy. And they're like, oh my gosh, candy, candy, candy. Well, we as parents often make this obsession worse by saying things like, well, you have to finish your dinner before you get your candy. What we tell them when we do that is that candy is the reward, and candy is super exciting. We put it up on a pedestal, and then we're like, oh my gosh, you're so lucky you got this candy after dinner. And we hype it up and we make it bigger and bigger, and the kids just become obsessed with it. So if you find yourself in a position where you have a child who's obsessed with candy, you can start serving whatever that treat is, that cookie, that candy, in this case, 3 chocolate chips. You serve them with their lunch or with their dinner. And just don't make a big deal out of it. It's just there. And then they're like, oh my gosh, I can say blah, 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 blah. And what you're saying by putting it just next to everything else on their plate is, this is all the same. And you're not saying anything. You're not hyping it up or anything.
Mhm.
And you do that for 3 days. And maybe on the 4th day, you kind of assess, is the obsession going down or is it going up? You serve it with the meal and you're saying, hey, this is all food, and kind of decrease the specialness of it, essentially. And when your kid is like, I want more chocolate chips, after they've had those 3, you could just say, there's no more available for this meal, but we're going to have more tomorrow. And just assure them that you can definitely assume that they're going to have tantrums for a while, and it may take a few weeks for them to understand that, yeah, they're going to get chocolate chips now and then with a meal, and they're not going to be able to have as many as they want, but they're going to be able to have a couple, and that's okay. So you're training them. It's a long game.
That is so clever. I love that idea, because it's so true. I mean, how chocolate is normally treated. It's like, oh, it's a specialty dessert. It's separate. That's such an interesting concept, to have it with the meal, but just a small amount to kind of balance it out.
Right. And I do find parents have a really hard time with it. They're like, well, that doesn't seem right. But then they're also equally frustrated that their kid is so obsessed with candy. And I just find so many parents are like, oh my gosh, I never thought I would see my kid take a bite of broccoli before chocolate. And they see that. Now, my kids will generally eat the chocolate first, and that's fine too. They're also not like, I just want more chocolate. They almost never ask for it because they just know, well, this is what's available, and then I'll have more another day.
I think this is really interesting to know what your view on snacks and treats are. So it's kind of like a segue from putting, the chocolate in the meal, like a couple chips. So what's your view on different snacks and treats? And how do you tell your child no when they ask for something, when it's probably not the right time or they already had something?
I think establishing your authority as the person who decides what food is served when is really important. And we don't have to be jerks about it. We can just be really clear and really firm that we decide when food is served. So when my kids say, I really wanted milk with dinner, and milk, I say, well, milk isn't on the menu. Water is on the menu. And I tell them, it's like, we're going to have milk tomorrow with breakfast. So I let them know that it's not on the menu. You're not judging food. You don't have to say it's good or bad. You don't have to say, well, that's junk food. You don't have to say that's a treat. You don't have to say anything at all. You don't have to explain yourself as the parent. I mean, maybe as your kids get older and are like, into their older years, then especially with little kids, you do not have to explain yourself. You don't have to justify your choice. You just say, that's not on the menu. This is when it's going to be on the menu next. Here's what is on the menu now. And you just kind of lay it out for them. I always like to remind my kids they don't have to eat what I'm serving. And then, but we are going to sit down at the table together. Now, again, as with any training with kids, you can expect a couple weeks of unhappiness when they'll be like throwing a fit because they didn't get what they want or whatever. But think of it in the long term, like 3 weeks from now, my kid is going to understand that I mean business and that this is what's available. Now, the one key is you always, always, always need to serve at least one food at every meal and snack that you know they're comfortable with. And I know with kids, like, you don't always know what they're going to eat, and that's fine. But if there's a food that they generally like and they're not afraid of, you just want to make sure that's always at a meal or a snack, because otherwise they may not have a food that they feel comfortable with. We want them to feel comfortable at meals to get them eating so that it could maybe branch out and try something.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching part 2 of my interview with Jennifer Anderson. We still have one more part coming up and it'll be here next week, so you don't have to wait too long this time. So we'll see you guys next week. She's gonna dive in deeper to picky eaters and give some awesome tips for moms that have picky eaters. Also, she'll share an awesome link that she has to an at-home food plan. So check it out and we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Mom Talks with Christa. If you're not yet subscribed, go ahead and click on the subscribe button. It should be down here somewhere. We release new episodes every single Wednesday. And if you're not following us yet, be sure to follow us at Mommy Knows Best on Instagram. And remember, if you're watching this and doubting yourself, you are a great mom. So thanks so much for watching, and we will see you next week.